So I'm here today to do the first episode of my Brontë Breakdown series. This episode is going to be about Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. Okay, so I think how I want to do these episodes is I'll give a plot summary of the book, I'll give my general impression of the book, and then I'll talk about, anything I find particularly interesting or relevant to the discussion of the book. So things like biographical context, historical context, different themes, things that I found really interesting, the way they were explored, things like that. Because I've thought for a while about how I wanted to structure these videos and whether I wanted to have set things that I explored and set ways I discussed the books, and I came to the conclusion that that just wasn't necessary. I just want to discuss the book in a way that feels organic. Agnes Grey is a book that follows Agnes Grey, the main protagonist. Her family falls under harsh circumstances, and she decides that she wants to help them out and get a job on her own. So she decides to become a governess. So she has two experiences governessing. She has two experiences looking after families. The first of which is a hell story, where she gets to the house and it's just a terrible, terrible situation where the kids are awful and the parents are terrible and she's all alone and she's just forced to cope with this really, really bad situation. Eventually she leaves that and then she moves on to her longer situation, and that is where she is with a richer family. She is supervising older children. She stays there for several years before she meets a man. It's Mr. Weston. And then from there you can guess what happens. I've said this before in my review of the book, in one of my wrap-ups, but nothing really happens. That brings me to my own impressions of the book, and they were that I really enjoyed reading it because I found Agnes's viewpoint very comforting. I found her story interesting at the time. I emotionally connected with her, despite the fact that she as a character, I think, is not particularly well developed, because, this novel is set up in the same way a coming-of-age story would be, with the young protagonist going off into the world and, making her own fortune, learning things about herself and others along with her journey to growing up. And so it has that premise, but at the same time, Agnes, the beginning of the novel, is a virtuous, wonderful human being. Agnes, at the end of the novel, is also a virtuous, wonderful human being. And she's quite static as a character. It's more so about the situations that Agnes is put in and how she responds to situations and how the situations affect her. But I really enjoyed reading it, and I really enjoyed the experience of being in Agnes's head and hearing her thoughts on the world and seeing her world through her own eyes, because I think that it was a really interesting immersion into the mind of a virtuous 19th century woman. My impression of the book was, it's kind of boring if you're into plot or super big conflict, because there really isn't any particularly huge conflict. But I liked it. It's the kind of novel that you want to curl up with and just immerse yourself in. The writing is really nice. I really like Anne Bronte's writing. It's not overdone in any way. It's not particularly flowery, but it's not too sparse. And the way she describes situations and the way she gives characters dialogue, I just thought was so conducive to immersion within the novel. This novel is often thought to be autobiographical. Anne took on a position as a governess for 5 years in her life, and so it's generally assumed that, those experiences fed some of the experiences of Agnes in this novel, but it's not an autobiography by any means. What it does do, I think, that it explores what it's like to be a governess in the 19th century, and it explores what it's like to be a woman making your way in this world alone, through one of the only means through which you can do that. And that, I think, brings me to one of the most prominent themes in this book, and that's class and the politics of class. Because Agnes is alone, and she is interacting with people who are higher to her on the social level. The interactions that she has with her students and the interactions she has with the students' parents are quite interesting to look at and analyze, because there's an interesting dynamic there where, Agnes is teaching her pupils. She is more educated than them, but at the same time, the pupils have a disregard for her, and they just have a lack of empathy towards her. It's really interesting to look at, because that obviously isn't out of spite. The children love her. One of the families love her, but they treat her badly not because they want to cause her any kind of harm. Simply, she is a governess, and she is worthy of much less respect than they give to their own friends and other family members. Another interesting thing with class is, and this is linked to how the children treat actual poor people as well, because some of the upper class young ladies that Agnes teaches are shown to be visiting some of the lower class people, and so the way they interact with them is very, very similar to the way they interact with Agnes, which is quite interesting, because Agnes is much more educated than the people that the girls are interacting with in this circumstance. So what you really see is that the girls don't value education. They don't value what a person is or what the person is like, because by our standards today, Agnes is much more upper class than the poorer people that the girls are interacting with. But to them, they are the same. Because to them, if you are not their level, if you are not upper class and rich, then you are not worthy of respect. And so that's quite interesting how the girls that Agnes is teaching view her as part of a homogenous group of lesser individuals. The next two things I want to discuss, religion and romance, which actually do come together. Religion plays a very large part in Agnes's life. You know, her father is a clergyman, she is very religious, and so she often turns to God for comfort. And she tries very hard to be pure, and then that, in a sense, in the novel, turns into a conflict between religion and romantic love, which I know sounds a little bit weird. So Mr. Weston, Agnes's love interest, is a pastor. He is a religious man. Agnes is already torn between being so invested in him because, you know, to her, they're not the person, but the one to which you should be expending all your love toward is God. You should be caring about God above everyone else. You should not be obsessed with anyone but God. And as she feels herself starting to have a romantic attachment to Mr. Weston, as she begins to be very, very interested in him, she's stuck because she feels like this is immoral. It's fundamentally immoral to be so interested in a fellow human being. At one point, Agnes is listening to one of Mr. Weston's sermons, and then she's so interested in the sermon because he is preaching. She feels that she is mocking God with the service of a heart more bent upon the creature than the creator. And that, I think, is the fundamental struggle that she really faces between religion and romantic love, where she feels like she should not be valuing the creature this much. And for all her life, she has not valued creatures so intensely. But now she is struck by the fact that she can be so deeply immersed in another human being, and she can be so deeply immersed in someone or something that is not God and is not religious. And what's interesting here, of course, is that because Mr. Weston is a clergyman, he is also like intrinsically tied with God because he is a holy man. So I think part of the reason she's able to reconcile her romantic love with religion is that, you know, he is so, in her mind, pure because he is a man of God. So you have this really interesting theme of, you know, romance versus religion, and can you reconcile the two? Ultimately, you know, she is able to do so. Spoilers, but also not really a spoiler because that's how Victorian novels work, guys. That was the video. I'm sorry if this was rambly or a mess or all over the place because honestly, I should have filmed this sooner after finishing the book, but oh well, it's in the past. And also, because this is my first of the segment, I think I might want to structure my thoughts better the next time I do one of these. I feel like I've been rambling a lot, I've been stuttering a lot. Hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to me talk about this. If you have anything to say or anything to add, please let me know down below because this is really kind of an obscure novel. I think it's one of the most obscure by the Brontes. And it's really made me interested in Anne Bronte. I know that The Tender Waffle Hall is a lot of people's favorite Bronte work overall, much less just Anne's. And so I'm really excited to get to it because I love her characters and I love her writing. And I feel like combined with an actual plot, that could create something wonderful, and I'm really excited. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment down below, and if you found anything that was interesting, comment down below the themes that you picked up on in this book that you want to discuss because I would love to discuss it with all of you. Have a good day.